Welcome into the Moving in NORFOLK podcast. Today, we're going to be breaking down a whole lot of information dealing with the VA loan. For those who don't know what that is, that's the Veterans of Affairs loan for military personnel who have served our military force in the United States, where they actually have a fundamental loan that actually helps them get into as a loan product to get into a mortgage any time of the day. I'm your host, Craig Houston, and today with me is one of my favorite lenders in the game. With me today is going to be Oscar Avila. Oscar, welcome in, baby. How you doing?
Oh, thank you, Craig. That was a good introduction. No, and I just want to say that I think you did a fantastic job whenever it came to helping out the buyer buy a property. I think you did a really great job structuring the deal, and not a lot of people can actually do what you do. So I'm kind of happy to talk about it. So let's do it.
I'm glad to say that too. To hear that from you, Oscar, but obviously I couldn't have done it without you as well too. You and the VA wholesale mortgage team, y'all did a great job in making sure that we got this deal done immediately. For those who are used to seeing the Moving to NORFOLK podcast sitting on remote on site, we are now in the At Coastal Realty office, so we are on site together so we can get these conversations in person together. One of the main things that we like to actually make sure that people understand about what we do as real estate agents and as mortgage lenders is that we're in a game of servitude. It may not be no secret if you've been watching the Moving to NORFOLK podcast for a while that me and Oscar both was in the military. We basically know the ins and outs of how people struggle with the military day-to-days, but sometimes the unique perspective that military personnel have is that simply that we have products that people don't actually have the exclusivity to like we do. So, and the VA loan is one of those products. So let's just recap a little bit for the people at home who don't know a lot about the VA loan process, what that looks like for a military service member.
Yeah, so the VA loans, it's a loan administered by the Veteran Affairs. The great thing about the VA loan is a 0% down program. So it's mostly for active duty veterans, surviving spouses, and in some cases, if you're a reservist, and you could potentially qualify for the loan as well, even if you're a National Guard too. So it's a great program out there to help active duty and veterans.
Absolutely. So when you say zero money down, why is that so significant versus the other mortgage loan types?
Yeah, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, there's a lot of misconception out there that you need 20% down to purchase a home, and that's not the case. And if you're active duty and a veteran, there's a lot of first-time homebuyer programs out there, like the FHA loan where you need 3.5% or a 3% conventional. But if you're active duty and you qualify, or a veteran and you qualify, you can use the VA loan for the 0% down program. So it's great. It's just great.
So now, one of the misconceptions that a lot of times I get phone calls from clients or from buyers that are in the VA loan packaging for some of the pre-approvals that we see that come across the board is a lot of them think that zero money downs means they don't have to bring closing costs to the table. Do you see that often?
Yeah, it's a big thing out there too. Our roles in this the industry, the mortgage industry, the real estate industry, is to like educate people too, because a lot of people just talk about the down payment of a home and they don't really go into the closing cost of the home. So I have a lot of buyer consultations and they're like, "What's closing cost?" So it's kind of our role to kind of educate them too. But closing costs is just a whole bunch of fees associated with title, homeowners insurance, and origination fees as well that some lenders have. But most of the time, it's just a ballpark number of like 3%. It's a good rule of thumb to have out there just so people can understand what to expect whenever they purchase a home.
So it's safe to say that you may not have to put the 20% down when it comes to using the VA loan. But one of the things that people do still need to understand is that if you're going to be using the VA loan type, you may still need to have money to come to the closing table with to close the deal with.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah, so if you're active duty or a veteran and you're thinking about using your VA loan, and just know you got to have money in the bank for that closing cost. But there's avenues around it too. We could get lender's credit or even kind of negotiate that with the listing agent, and we're going to talk about that more. But just keep in the back of your mind, you need that 3% if you want to go ahead and just go that route too.
And do you think that it's even more advantageous to deal with a realtor who knows more so in the ins and out of the VA loan process as well on the lending side that makes it a little bit easier for you?
Yeah, most definitely, because I feel like nowadays, especially in this market, the Hampton Roads area, it's just kind of difficult with the low inventory. A lot of agents don't know how to kind of present an offer to try to negotiate that 3%. Because I come across situations where I get people pre-approved, and then I ask the real estate agent, the realtor, I was like, hey, do you think you can negotiate closing costs? And they're like, no.
So why do you think they say that? Or do you think they're because it's the myth out there in the marketplace that the VA loan is one of the worst loan products for mortgages?
So I think yes, and I think it also has to do with I guess the not the lack of creativity, but also I guess the confidence in the agent themselves, because I can see being a real estate agent or a realtor, I'm not one, I'm a mortgage broker. If I'm going to go ahead and negotiate, with the listing agent to get that closing cost negotiated, I can see where that can kind of be kind of nerve wracking to some people. And, but I think you just got to find ways around it and kind of be creative on how to present your offer so you can get that done too.
So I think when we get into this conversation today, a lot of the audience is going to find that we was in a unique situation where we had a well-qualified buyer, but we still was able to negotiate a lot of things for this well-qualified buyer, which may lead to more opportunity for us to work with this buyer again.
Oh, yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, do you think that the misconception of either the conventional loan, the FHA product, or the VA loan, which one would you say is the best loan product to use in the mortgage industry?
For me, I would say the VA loan. I mean, I'm biased because I'm a Navy veteran.
Got you.
So
that's fair. That's fair.
No, I think actually it is. I think it's one of the best products out there because you don't have to deal with PMI.
Okay.
Right.
So let's explain to the people what PMI is.
So PMI is private mortgage insurance, and that's usually you have PMI on a loan whenever you put less than 20% down. So if you do a 3% conventional or a 3.5% FHA loan, you're going to have PMI, and that's going to increase your monthly payment. And depending on what your credit score is, it could be pretty high. So the VA loan, the great thing about that is you don't have to pay PMI, and it lowers your monthly payment. So it's a great thing.
Okay, so what about those who be like, okay, what's up with this funding fee? Like, let's talk about the funding fee a little bit here, because I know some people say, yeah, the conventional loan or the FHA, yeah, they have private mortgage insurance, but the VA loan has a funding fee. Now, let's break down what this funding fee is, and then is there ways around a service member or a veteran, I should say in this case, not to be able to pay the funding fee?
Yeah, so the funding fee is the portion that the VA, the Veterans Affairs kind of guarantees, right? They put some skin in the game as well, so that's why there's that funding fee. I mean, there's ways around it. You can what a lot of people do is they finance the funding fee. That's why it's a 0% down program.
Gotcha.
You can go ahead and not finance it, but then again, it's going to go into your closing costs, right? So it's going to be more money at the closing table. But what everybody does is they finance the funding fee. And if you're a disabled veteran, you're exempt from that funding fee. As long as you're 10% disabled, we don't have to include that into the loan. So it's going to lower, the loan amount and your monthly payment. But when you're talking about a funding fee, it shouldn't really affect your monthly payment too much.
Got you. Okay, so let's break down. Obviously, there are some tiers of the funding fee. We'll get into those conversations here as we continue on with the Moving in NORFOK podcast, because one of the things that I think about is that we can go over the VA loan process all day long. We just want to give you the generalities of it so you kind of understand where we're shaping this conversation to go. So, like, for the people who are keeping score at home, we actually had I had a listing in Portsmouth, Virginia, and we actually got that listing completed within 7 days on the market, and then we actually got that whole process done. The client received over asking. Got it done in 7 days, no closing costs out of pocket for the buyer. They didn't have to get no seller concessions to help the buyer close the deal. And when we landed that deal, what happened next was that same seller referred me to the buyer that we're dealing with in this situation. So when we came across this buyer, the background of this buyer is they had a home that they're renting as an investment property in Maryland, and they had a home that they was living in Virginia Beach. But they wanted to actually get another property using their VA loan entitlement. Now, one of the misconceptions that a lot of people are unaware of is that you don't only get a one-hitter quitter on the VA loan. Is that correct?
No, that is correct. You can have multiple properties under your VA loan as long as you have the entitlement, for the VA loan. And every area is different. If you live in a high-cost area, it's a lot different than, the Hampton Roads area. But, yeah, that's what we were able to do.
Okay, so let's break down why that's important to know. Okay, so if I am a veteran and I use $300,000 of my loan for my first property on the VA loan, how much entitlement do I have left? Or is there a formula, something that we have to work through?
Yeah, so there is a formula. It doesn't go off sale price.
Gotcha.
It's based off how much entitlement has been charged against you, right? So what we have to do is calculate. Well, not calculate. We'll take your COE. We'll pull your COE, and it's going to show.
What's the COE? Let's talk about what that is. Make sure for the people at home paying attention in the back.
So COE, right? So it's a certificate of eligibility, and it's only for like active duty, veterans, reservists, maybe people in the National Guard too. It's just a document to show that you're eligible to use your VA loan, and it show you how much entitlement you have left over to use. Or if you're a disabled veteran, it shows your disability compensation on there as well. So that's how we kind of verify that you're eligible to use your VA loan. But yeah, so basically we'll just see how much has been charged, and then there's a formula that we do, right? So we multiply that kind of by 4. In order for us to kind of get a right calculation on how to calculate your eligibility.
Okay, so in this situation, our client had basically had eligibility left over, and then our client actually had enough money in the bank to where, I guess one of the things that we need to make sure that's explained here with that percentage of what's left over of your eligibility, it may require a down payment if the house that you're looking to purchase is over the remaining eligibility, right?
No, that is right. Yeah, so I mean, I got like a quick example that I wrote down earlier, if that's okay.
Okay,
to share that.
Hey, break it down for us, big dog.
Yeah, so like in Hampton Roads, right, the VA for the VA loan is 700. The conforming limit, right, 700.
Okay, so hold on, let's slow down because you're gonna be dropping some game on people now, and I know people are going to be like, what did he just say? So let's slow it down just a little bit more. Okay. Let's talk about what is a conforming limit first.
Right. So for the conforming limit, meaning that's as much money that you can use like for your VA loan in the Hampton Roads area. So the limit here is $726,200, right? So when you divide that number by 4, you get a number of $181,500.
Okay.
That's how much entitlement that you can use, right? So what you have to do, right? So let's say this buyer they used $209,720 on their VA loan, on their mortgage.
Okay.
So we divide that number by 4, right? It's going to give us $64,905, right? So we're going to subtract those two entitlements, 181 minus 64,000, and it's going to give us $116,595, right?
And now, why is that important?
So that right there is your remaining entitlement.
Okay, got you.
The VA loan.
Got you.
So in order to find how much of a loan amount they can take out, right, we're going to have to multiply that number by 4.
Okay.
So once we multiply that number by 4, you're going to get a loan amount of $466,380.
Okay, so now why that's important is because without putting no money down, that service member could go and get another mortgage for that amount.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. For the $466,000.
Yeah, for the $466,000, they can do a 0% down VA loan, right?
Versus if they were to do a FHA loan or a conventional loan, they would have to put 3.5% to 5% down at a minimum.
Yep, that's right. And let's say the borrower wants to go up and purchase a home that's worth $500,000, right?
Okay.
But they only have entitlement to go up to $466,000. What you could do, right? So you can actually still finance up to that $400,000, but you just got to put a small down payment. So in order for you to calculate that, right, all you have to do is just subtract that $500,000 versus the remaining entitlement you have, loan amount, and then you're just gonna divide that number by 4.
Okay.
Because the VA will only guarantee 25%.
Right. Now that is important to note because a lot of people think that if the VA loan is actually giving to them and they're using it, they think that the VA is on the hook for the entire purchase price.
Nope, that's wrong.
But they're only on the hook for 25%.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's important is because only 25% of your entitlement is always tied up at any given time, right?
Yep, that is right.
Okay. So let's keep on going.
So yeah, I mean that was pretty much it. I mean, you supposed
to tell us what the down payment is for that.
So the down payment for if you want to go, let's say this person has remaining loan entitlement for $466,000, and they want to purchase a $500,000 home, the down payment on that home is going to be $8,405.
So can you say that for the audience again?
It's going to be $8,405.
Okay, so if they went in, I just did a rough calculation on a conventional loan for if they was to do the same $466,000 that we just said they was actually approved to do on a 5% basis, right? 5% down payment is $23,000. That is significantly lower than the $23,000 they had to bring to the table for down payment.
Yeah.
On a $466,000 conventional loan.
Yeah, it's a kind of it's a crazy tool to have, and that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of people, when we had this buyer come to us, I know she was pre-approved with another loan officer at first, right?
Right.
And she was just hit a roadblock. She got only pre-approved to what, like $200,000, right?
Yeah, and so I think to me, I think that's experience. Honestly, like I said, there was a referral. So when I got it as a referral, they was already working with a lender, and like as a realtor, you don't want to rock the boat. You want to build a relationship with people because this industry is all about relationships. So it's kind of weird, not to talk negatively about someone or anything of that sort, but it was kind of weird where not only was the process taking forever, but the process also limited them to what they thought they could purchase, which is really weird. So that's why I think that goes where it comes back down to experience in dealing with the VA loans. And then also as a service member, understanding how the entitlement works for VA loans. Now in this situation, there was a thing with taxes. Tax returns was a situation. So it's about the calculations about the tax returns, which is your lane. I think that somewhat played a difficult role for other lenders in this situation.
Yeah, she was receiving rental income from her two other, from one property, and then when she was going to depart this property. So I could see why the tax returns kind of held him up. But I mean, that's as a service member, active duty veteran, reservist. If you're in the market to buy a home, I would just go ahead and make sure you kind of do your research on what company you're gonna get pre-approved at, because some loan officer might not know how to calculate your remaining entitlement or bonus entitlement even. They might not know that you can depart your primary residence and offset that mortgage. They probably don't know that, and maybe that's why that loan officer kind of was taking his time on it, because maybe he just didn't know the answers.
Right. And I mean, like at the end of the day, I think what's most important is that we took care of not only the service member, but we also made sure the service member realized that we had their best interest in heart and was not, out here just worried about getting paid off a transaction, which is that's what a lot of people are misconstrued about in this business. They think this business is all glitz and glamour, where you have to, you only get to stand in front of the house, take a picture, with a family, and put a sign in the yard when it comes down to it. But really and truly, it comes down to being servitude and helping people, with through unique challenges. And this was a unique challenge.
No, it was. What I like to always say is, like, we have like fiduciary duties. We always have the client's best interest at heart. Even if it's going to be $100,000 purchase price or a $500,000, $900,000, I treat everybody the same, and I believe you treat everybody the same.
Absolutely.
Too. No, it was a really unique situation, and the craziest part about it too was just that excitement that she had at the closing table. Being able to receive those checks in the mail. For purchasing a home, which is kind of crazy.
Right. So let's break down what we're talking about here, folks. Because I know a lot of y'all are like, okay, so y'all breaking this down for us. Y'all telling us all the things about the VA loan, and we're hearing you. Okay. So basically, we walked into a deal where we was able to not only. So let me just set the stage. Okay. So the home was purchased at X amount. Right. I mean, all of it's public record, so we could be very candid at this point. But either way, so let's just talk about it. So the home was listed at $450, but me being in the market with their pre-approval, she was approved all the way up to, I want to say $480, or $466, or maybe in the case or something like that or whatever, right? Either way, it doesn't even matter what the pre-approval was. At the end of the day, what happened was I analyzed the market in the area, saw that there was a recent sale in the neighborhood, in the same vicinity of the neighborhood, probably like 5 doors down. And the house was a little bit, the house that she was looking at was actually a little bit bigger in size than the other house. So as a reasonable comp, it was $10,000 more. So I was like, okay, so look, this is what we could do if you don't want to spend no money out of pocket for closing costs. We could give the seller $460 and request 3% seller's closing costs. And I said, what's the worst case scenario that happens? They tell us no, but you still want the house, and then we still go ahead and obtain the house through ratification if they want to counter us on the whole situation. Well, sellers, they're motivated and they agree to the terms that we actually outline in the deal. So now, what's interesting about this whole situation is that now turning it back over to the closing table, you as the lender, you start to see that this whole thing is working out to where you can't even utilize all the money.
Yeah, so that's one
in the seller's closing concessions.
Yeah, so that was one hiccup right before the closing table when we kind of started finalizing all the numbers. Craig did a really good job at presenting the offer and getting, those seller concessions. But the thing that we ran into, she was just getting way too much money at the closing table.
Absolutely.
So we had excessive funds. So,
now, why is that a problem? Why is someone having excessive funds at the closing table a problem?
I mean, it's not a problem for the buyer.
Okay.
Not at all, because it was a problem before we got to the closing table. So it wasn't, the loan wasn't going to get approved because we had excessive funds. So we had to use those excessive funds to even buy down her rate. And the good thing about that, it lowered her monthly payment and she got a lower interest rate.
Okay, so when we say buying down the rate, basically you applied funds to the interest rate to get it down even lower.
Yeah, and that way we can go ahead and still proceed to the closing table.
Now, for the folks at home, we're not talking about somebody with a rough credit score.
No rough credit score at all.
And she was still able to use seller concessions to buy down her interest rate even lower than what the minimum requirement would have been for the interest rate at the time in this market.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so she got, so the funds that we used was $1,500. That's how much funds we were able to use to buy down her rate and still proceed to the closing table, and she still got even more money at the closing table, which is insane.
Because like we said, this is a person who doesn't have credit problems, right?
She had no credit problems. She had no money problems. She had money in the bank,
right? and the lenders had to pay off debt for her that she had as revolving credit.
Yeah, and that was the thing that blew me away. It's like we're paying off some debt that she probably is not worried about. Just knowing her, she's not worried about that debt. But cool, she gets that, and she got something else too, Craig.
What else did she get?
She got a check.
Oh, at the closing table,
yeah.
Like money back in her pocket.
Yeah.
So she put her earnest money down and then got a portion of her earnest money back at the closing table.
Yeah.
Which is. In this market, how many people in your office are seeing deals like that coming across the market?
I mean, in this day and age, probably not too many, but you just got to be creative with it too, because I'm working with one right now that we're gonna, he's probably not gonna bring any money to the closing table, but still. If you're in a situation like that, that's a good situation to be in. That's a great situation to be in.
Yeah. When I talk to people about this whole situation who work in my office, we're seeing strategies being applied each and every day to get to a level where that becomes a success story. But the real interesting thing about it is that a lot of times people say they ain't seen those type of deals being brokered since the pandemic started.
Wow.
And then for us to start to be in that type of market, it kind of gives me hope that we're still seeing opportunity for people to purchase, but people just have to understand the unique responsibilities that it is important to understand who you're working with so they can actually help you navigate this market and get you into deals that actually make sense. Would you agree?
No, I totally agree 100% because, I come across industry professionals on a daily basis, and the one thing about, like I said earlier, I asked people, it's hey, can you negotiate closing costs? And they're like, no, not in this market. And I'm just like, well, it's possible because I did this, a week ago.
Right.
Why are you telling me it's not possible?
Right. And so, but I do think it is a unique perspective to have as professionals in this market now, like I said, not only with the military background, but for myself, I've experienced the same thing that we would help this client get through when I purchased my house in 2014 in California. I walked into that bad boy and went to the mailbox and got a check back in the mail, just the same way that she did. So do I know that that's something that can happen? Yes. Have I experienced it? Yes. So does it give me reliability on understanding what it is in the marketplace? Now, every deal, I guess the unique perspective is that you have to understand that every deal won't be able to close that way. But you have to be able to be unique in not only identifying the right property that fits the family. And a lot of times, I think what we get into as a market now, and you can tell me if how you feel about it, is that we usually now get home buyers who are thinking about buying their forever home because of how high the interest rates are, versus looking at it how this could be just a step in the right direction to get into that forever home.
Yeah, no, I mean, we come across it on a daily basis. It's like, 23, 24-year-old, it's like, oh, I want to buy this home, and it's like $500,000-$600,000. I'm like, oh wow, that's a lot of money. But they get upset when they can't get pre-approved that much. But
here's the reason. So I hate to interrupt you, but the reason why is because they listening to their friends who was purchasing in 2020, 2021, early 2022 when the interest rates were 2 to 3%, and then they spiked so much we basically seen them double, and now we're dealing with people who are basically qualifying for half of what they, for instance, purchasing 3 years ago at the most.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors too. I think social media plays a huge factor.
Okay, yeah, TikTok plays a role.
TikTok, you see all the influencers. And
this is going to be on TikTok, by the way.
Yeah,
so
it's something on TikTok. But I could see it happen where a lot of people want to go straight to their forever home. But you got to start somewhere. I remember when I bought my duplex when I was 23 at the time, 22 or 23. I forgot how old I was. But I was pre-approved up to like $400,000. But I didn't.
You didn't spend all of it.
I didn't spend all of it. I just bought a place that was like $250. Because I didn't want to overextend myself.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing you got to look at too. You don't want to overextend yourself, especially when you're so young. You don't want to be penny pinching on your monthly payment and put yourself in a unique situation at an early age. So.
Right. So now here's another unique perspective about this situation is that, if you're one of the things to consider too, if you are a veteran and you are out of the military and you have received a full 100% service connected, permanent and total disability rating from the Veterans of Affairs, in Virginia, you're exempt from property taxes in your local county.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention that. Yeah, and that's the thing too with the buyer too. She was exempt from the get go. We didn't have to include property taxes in her pre-approval, so her debt to income ratio was a lot lower, and she was able to get pre-approved for more.
So I know people who are service connected, 100% permanent total, and they're seeing an exemption in Virginia in the Hampton Roads area. We're talking about that's significant because it can be somewhere between $300 to $500 a month and no payment.
Especially, depending on what purchase price, that's a game changer.
That is a huge game changer. It gives you more buying power on the front end now that you can exempt it on the front end of the loan. Like previously, beforehand, before the bill was signed in Virginia, you had to go through the whole pre-approval process with it being calculated in, and then on the back end after you completed it, you was able to file, had the exemption put in. But now you can do it on the front end, right?
Yeah, no, that is right. It got passed. I mean, it's kind of crazy because VA wholesale, we were a supporter in that bill, right?
Okay.
We were like along the side every way on that bill, but I forgot what date it was. It was passed.
It was like in July or something like that.
But it was not too long ago, so it's great. It's great now if you're 100% disabled, permanent and total. I would go ahead and see, what you could qualify for. Maybe that's put a lot of people on the back burner. Property taxes. Maybe that kind of affected their DTI and they couldn't qualify for the home they really wanted. So, yeah, it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many significant wins with this. Would have been a member of the armed forces who can utilize the benefit of the Veterans of Affairs loan product for purchasing a mortgage. And that's just one of the tools that's in the tool belt now that we have seen. Now, like I said before, I always want to just say every deal don't work out the same. Every situation is unique, especially if it's a hot product. Sometimes you got to get very creative in how you're going to get things done. And that's one of the things that we just like to make sure that we talk about here is a little bit is that we want to make sure that you understand not only are you getting the best opportunities of working with, people who are going to have your best your best benefits in the forefront, but also people who are willing to, go the extra mile to make sure that things are going to happen for you, and then giving you the opportunity to see the skills at use, and then seeing skills and aptitude, but then also excelling and at least putting you in a situation where you can start building that generational wealth. Because one of the main things that came out of this whole conversation at the closing table was, oh, now we want to go back and get a duplex. Now they're talking about multifamily. They're looking to expand their reach. And I think that is something that has given them, a different appreciation for what they are able to do with the loan product that they had at their disposal.
Yeah, no, the VA loan set her up to do that because she didn't have to bring no money down, right? She didn't have to spend no money at the closing table, so she could use the funds that she does have on an investment property. So.
Right. And now that same 25% that we was talking about on a $466,000 home, which was the 5% was $23,000. Imagine you times that by 5, we could be talking about $100,000 down payment on a multifamily property. Depends on the price range. But if it's actually cheaper than that, we're not even talking about that number either. We could be talking about $50,000, $35,000, $40,000. But that's money that you don't have to put in the forefront, and that you didn't have to use on your primary residence, that you now can maybe even cash flow a product where it's going to come back to you tenfold in a few years.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's something super cool that she wants to do. So I'm kind of happy for her. Hopefully, she reaches out to us here soon about it. But no, that's the greatest thing about the VA loan, 0% down. I mean, you can do it too if you want to go into the multifamily space and you want to, buy a duplex and use that as your primary residence. You can do that too, but no, it was great on her that she was able to, save on the primary residence, and she's ready to go on to the next thing with the investment property.
Right. So I think the message is for our young investors because I get phone calls from young military investors all the time talking about, I need to invest in something. And every time we talk about it, every single one of them, a duplex, triplex, quadplex, right? It's never a single family dwelling for the most part when I talk to a young service member. It's usually one of the 2, 3, or 4 plexes or whatever, right? So to me, I think this is an important message to hear is that, the VA loan product gives you the opportunity to do so much more and with so much less, right? And if you don't utilize it throughout your career, you could be putting yourself in a situation where you're going to regret it later, right? I mean, if you just listening to Oscar, young service member, who got out of the Navy, but he has his own duplex. He's renting out one side, you living in the other side. Oh, yeah. We call that house hacking. And you are seeing that, be a benefit to you now. But when you decide to move out of there, you can move into a single family. Yeah, if you ever decide to, right? You move into a single family, you can put another tenant in the other one, now it's cash flowing itself. Yeah. And you're still having your own primary residence.
Yeah, and that's the goal. My goal is to eventually move out of there, and then wherever I go next, the cash flow is going to offset. Either if I decide to rent somewhere nice or just go buy a primary residence, that cash flow is going to offset my mortgage payment. So I'll be still kind of living for free.
and one of the general secrets that I love about this area is that military is always coming here, no matter what the situation is. And I mean, you got to just realize that if you are an investor and you are in this local market, military personnel are always coming here, and unfortunately, all of them can't afford to purchase. Unfortunately, I mean, I would think that hopefully one day we will see all of them at least be homeowners. But for the most part, all of them can't purchase, so they need somewhere to rent, right? Realistically, and then if you are one of those service members who owns the investment property, now you're starting to see your income start to balloon a lot more because you're able to rent to fellow service members, and for the most part, I think the only people in our economy at this point in time who got job security is our military service members.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, honestly, they're going to get paid on the 1st and the 15th, and I'm not saying that like as thinking about it in a predatory sense, but think about it in a sense of an investor. You want to make sure you're always going to get paid, so who's going to always be able to pay you?
Yeah, the military.
Right. So, and that's just to me one of those things about this whole unique dynamic that we put together today to just talk about this situation. So we're going to have more conversations like this overall. We're just going to be breaking down deals, breaking down things that we're seeing in the market, and just talking about a lot of things that are unique, not only to moving to Norfolk, but just giving you an idea about how different things that you can utilize at your disposal as we come across them and we learn new tips and tricks to bring you each and every day in the trenches of real estate. So, Oscar, I always want to thank you for being out here again, man, for the VA wholesale mortgage team. They got a real one on their team.
Oh, thank you,
and
Craig.
I appreciate you for always being here with me so we can get things done for the real estate market and especially for our service members.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the Coastal team for, giving us a spot to film this. Thank you, Craig.
Okay, so let's before we get up out of here, let's give the people a way of getting in contact with you. Where can they follow you at?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Oscar the Loan Officer, even on TikTok. I don't post much on TikTok though, so I got to start doing that. Or on Facebook, Oscar Avila.
You got to step his TikTok game up, but we'll work on that as we keep on providing more content and more informational pieces like this. Hey, once again, I'm your host, Craig Houston. Hey, man, this has been the Moving in NORFOK podcast. Hey, we'll catch you in the next episode. Y'all be safe. Peace.